Hello and welcome. These words were muttered by Ben Dixon pre-game.
I'm just hoping that they bring something different because Carlton will prepare for what they've dished up over the last month especially, and Mike Tyson's greatest saying is everyone's got a plan till you get punched in the face.
And it's fair to say Carlton got punched in the face and had zero counter-punch. If you ever needed living proof of an AFL team moving from living in heaven to living in hell in the space of an hour, the Blues said, "Hold my beer." Carlton held this sign up halfway through the second quarter, and there must have been some miscommunication because GWS went and kicked 65 of the next 73 points. Lads, pretty sure by design the power switch does not mean switch off. I feel like these two quotes work hand in hand. Let's have a listen.
You only get to play your brand of footy if you've got the footy.
We were completely dominated in the second and third quarter. Not a hell of a lot was working in some of the things we were trying to adjust just because we couldn't get our hands on it as effectively as we could.
Today we're going to look at the juxtaposition or severe differences between both phases. If you go on to enjoy, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new, so you can remain tuned for the next iteration of Carlton analysis. If you feel as if my work is worth a financial contribution as well, you can also become a channel member, but it isn't an obligation. Enjoy the video. So the first quarter, despite the scoring disparity, well, GWS were transitioning from the back half and getting it inside forward 50, but the end product was abhorrent compared to the Blues. Carlton was dominating stoppage, and so given GWS had half their tackles for the quarter inside 50 and only 7 everywhere else, it meant A, the forward 50 tackles of GWS were not effective in producing any scoreboard damage, B, Carlton were transitioning and scoring, and C, doing it at an unacceptably easy standard. Look no further than where Carlton scored the bulk of their points from. I think this comment by Adam Kingsley sums it up really well.
Well, we wanted to attack them with our handball, with our run on the offensive side, but we, the contest stuff is obviously really important. We weren't supporting each other anywhere near well enough from a defensive perspective.
GWS's shortcomings came from the finer details. They were fumbly at costly stages that prevented their control, which allowed Carlton to defend adequately, which fed into Carlton's stoppage dominance early on. There's one here with Calward fumbling it, which ruins the timing of Bedford's run, nor does he have the time to process Callaghan is open as well on the open side. This play sums it up well for me in the first quarter. The handball receives were a big talking point in GWS's transformation. You see a bit of foreshadowing with Hogan outmarking Brodie Kemp up the ground. But the handball receive wasn't on offer, nor was a kick executed into the middle, utilising those halfbacks who started deepest to perhaps test Carlton on the switch. In the end, it's a high bomb kick, and Carlton have that support defensively. As we mentioned, GWS have some spark plug type players in their forward 50 to force a stoppage, but Carlton win clearances, and even with GWS winning it back on multiple occasions, the congestion can offset the defensive liabilities we see later on. On this example, GWS have disconnect going inside 50. GWS's pressure is a little bit off because Carlton, despite the pressure they face, can travel about 20 to 25 meters forward from the starting point. In the first quarter, a stoppage was a win for the Blues, and that 20 to 25 meters proves vital for the next target to be reached. Small details here. Himmelberg or Iden wager going a kick behind the football. Lee Kalia half commits and goes from being goal side to not. And Curnow doesn't succumb to being outnumbered, which obviously changed as the landscape of the game changed. This is the kind of missing support up the ground that Adam Kingsley was alluding to. And those subtle decisions made by GWS were punished. Over another minute span, we'll see some more shortcomings. Jesse Hogan exposes Kemp's vulnerability, which was very much foreshadowing, and for that quick rebound after the Carlton clearance, GWS have a lot of space. But the shortcoming on this occasion was that 50 meters out, I'd be on the fence as to whether he can make the distance. Though on this side of the ground, it's a bit clearer. GWS outnumber Carlton. Jones, as he runs back to goal, will create separation from Toby Green. A kick to the right of screen towards the boundary mitigates Wheatering's impact to spoil. And then Adam Sard will equally be in two minds of who to contest. Theoretically, that opens up a pass somewhere inside 50. But picking an option and executing the kick that brings Wheatering into the game kills off any rising momentum that could come from this play. Though, given the corky Wheatering suffers, it does hold a bit of weight from this point forward. Anyway, we have a stoppage which Carlton unsurprisingly win. The trend continues in quick succession, and whilst the kicking I felt wasn't necessarily planned on many occasions, with a few torpedoes being a staple of Carlton's attacks at times, you need to be in it to win it. And those marks don't happen if Carlton aren't killing it on clearances in the first place. With every Giant bolting back without concern of the ball carrier, Matt Kennedy is more time than initially perceived despite playing on. Alias slips over and Jack Buckley's late to the spoil attempt. And whilst a mark goes begging, Carlton get another stoppage, meaning they're instantly higher on the pedestal yet again. At stoppage, GWS don't use handball in this situation. They don't spread to the outskirts, rather adopting a more internal position. This is much easier to cover and blanket the impact from an opposition perspective, as we saw for another goal being kicked earlier on. As a countermeasure, the Blues obviously smother, GWS collapse further inward, and Carlton are open on the outside, creating a rash closeout. The free kick that Carlton earned was by virtue of some GWS clumsiness, but I think that is a fitting way to summarize GWS and their first quarter efforts. To pile on the pain, the centre clearance before this one, the clearance action was Cripps to Walsh on the defensive side. Carlton run out the same action, but fake the final pass and exploit the freed up space from Walsh's starting position. Giants players roll over to try and compensate, and despite the stiff free kick, even without, Carlton are either scoring or a stoppage is occurring deep inside 50. Favourable again for Carlton in a multitude of ways. So where did the game change? Well, footy is a simple game, and the Giants, well, they simply got better. This is what Adam Kingsley had to say.
I thought we were better with our hands. We coped with their pressure better, and we applied pressure better ourselves.
It was just a matter of sticking to the plan, but doing it better.
They were sharper and crisper with their handballs. They could feed the outside. They weren't dropping marks. The hitouts were more favourable to them. They weren't handing over possession. They were getting this at a maximum. And so clearances rose, marks inside 50 rose, handball receives rose, transition from their back 50 became easier as well. And from a Carlton perspective, I think it's really important that we rehash an earlier quote I used.
I thought we were better with our hands. We coped with their pressure better, and we applied pressure better ourselves.
GWS, as they improved with their disposal, Carlton couldn't apply pressure, and the pressure was too much for themselves. Hence, the heavy possession disparity and the pressure rating switch up, and their intelligence and smarts on field became clouded. Let's rehash another Kingsley quote.
We weren't supporting each other anywhere near well enough from a defensive perspective.
Now, let's hear Vossi.
We just probably didn't support maybe enough, and when you're getting that sort of clean ball through and your defenders are left one-on-one and we can't get the support, we probably let our defenders down a little bit, couldn't get any delay on it.
The comments by both coaches about their tough phase of the game was practically identical. Carlton didn't support, but there is nothing to support if you don't have a backbone, and Carlton's game certainly had zero backbone. In the first quarter, we saw GWS get outnumbered by 11 handball receives. They were plus 28 in the second quarter, and there's a bunch in this chain alone. Sam Walsh is drawn in, and Bedford will follow the play. Callaghan does the same early to relieve Ward of the duress that came with the loopy hand pass. And remember Lockie Whitfield, who following his first handball ends up out of play. Carlton have a couple of players alone on the defensive side, but their impact is rendered void almost instantaneously as Callaghan's move draws them both in, and even Walsh as well. Now Bedford is goal side even more so, only one matchup in the way to all of this space. Callaghan's handball is so damaging given how far he's displaced Carlton's midfielders. The outnumber gets used, and given Whitfield's work rate from where he was moments ago, that symbolizes change. Given the quick transition, whoever's role it is to block the space, well, that's not definable in this scenario. Cowan needs to roll across to cover Daniels. Darcy Jones gets ahead of Sard, as Sard too gets a bit drawn to the ball, and that ball watching has this outcome. Carlton defenders need to do as much as they can to slow down the entry with space and an option over the back, but the mids are all caught too high up, and it's one extra job for the defense that tips it over the edge. Thus, why Bedford's got this entire lane, Boyd has to help, vacating his assignment, and it causes GWS to exploit that as Boyd's man ends with a goal. Such a miscalculation from the mids. Finn Callaghan's performance didn't get a boatload of praise, but I think as the game grew, his impact did too. And it's not limited to his impact on the last play either. On this example, Callaghan runs in an attacking direction, more centrally, on the open side of the stoppage. And remember Kingsley's quote about clean hands. Callaghan's cleanliness first time gets them that access to the space sooner. And so even with a fumble, he's got time to possess. The sweeping handball again works wonders, as going with the longer option allows the shallow option to run onto a handball receive. As for this marking contest, this was a Kemp-sized problem. Even without Wietering, Kemp had his interceptor cap on. He wants to jump, not grapple with Riccardi, but if he did, it neutralizes the forward, and there's zero chance of Briggs negating Kemp. Equally, De Koning is well positioned to meet Briggs aerially. Instead, De Koning finds himself under the footy, given Riccardi needs to lightly nudge him under it, and Kemp can't impact at all with Briggs blocking. And that's where the winner of this contest is determined. Kemp's not doing anything defensively, and so neither is De Koning. It might as well have been uncontested. In Carlton's defensive 50, they couldn't even get a kickoff without being under intense duress. Stoppages still arose in the forward half for GWS, but now these were productive stoppages. The work rate displays itself again. Bedford's getting tackled and then has the nous to support and follow up. A handball to Chera is allowing a level of space the Blues barely had at a time they felt claustrophobic. But the tackle affects the handball, and Carlton need an extra 3 handballs to end up wider, having probably gained 0 meters towards their forward 50, placing them under siege again. And off the back of that, this is puzzling. You're getting smoked in stoppage. If you want the winger defensive, get a half forward to push up and play man on man. Sit that winger a kick or so away. What good is Holland's 10 meters off the ball when Callaghan's right at the ruck contest and far more usable? The bounce is luck-based, but you're testing your luck. Even still, this entry is no different to many other dump kicks by GWS into forward 50 like the first quarter. We're kidding ourselves if this is anything other than sheer incompetence to not spoil this. I think these two plays really sum up how Carlton drifted away from what was working and how GWS, their performance was significantly enhanced comparing the first to the third. We saw Toby Bedford shift across to Paddy Cripps, and this subtle nudge is massive to free up Cornelio, who is well protected and has time to weigh up what's downfield. Hogan's impact here is far more impactful than anything he did in the first quarter, summarising the Giants' transformation. Spoils Wiedering tackles him, and the Giants can continue their transition without Wiedering in the fray if it goes inside forward 50, as he's got to labour back. In the first, we saw players like McGovern pushing up the ground on Carlton transition attacks. Now that's mirrored by Himmelberg with the same movement. Briggs torched De Koning this quarter, and on this run inside 50, he sunbaked him. GWS courtesy of the switch and the Hogan play up the ground. Carlton's midfield were ineffective in holding up GWS. With that said, McGovern was at sea positioning-wise, Wiedering was on the back pedal off screen, and Kemp was preoccupied. With this situation, the opportunity presented for Briggs. Strong improvement all round by GWS. And to top it off, if I had have told you Carlton taking a mark here with 60 seconds left in the quarter would result in a mark at the Giants' end a mere 18 seconds later, you would have called me insane. But it happened. All Carlton need to do is lock the ball inside their forward 50. The kick to get it to Williams accommodates a longer switch to numbers on the far side, given Darcy Jones closed the gap on Williams, leaving Boyd open, and others were running with the grain as well. But instead, playing on brought Darcy Jones and his rapid pace back into the fray. And a lack of awareness for what was ahead of the ball was deadly, as it delayed the trigger on the pass. A goal on the stroke of three-quarter time eventuates, and, well, this felt like taking one step forward and getting gut punched 15 steps back. So yeah, despite the final score, it had a shocking undertone to it. The middle two quarters almost felt like those local footy games where top plays bottom and it ends 250-1 or something to that effect. That performance hopefully remains isolated to this game, but the unpredictability of losing in such unforgivable fashion despite recent strong form will definitely linger as a concern for me. What are your thoughts? Is this a minor blip and just a part of the ebbs and flows of a season? Or is there something to be more concerned about? Share your thoughts below. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week, but until then, stay safe, have a good one, and bye for now.